Hello everybody, this is John Fenn, and normally on this channel you hear from me as I am the founder of Church Without Walls International, cwowi.org, but I'm coming to you today not as the leader of a worldwide house church network, but as a husband and a father. Many of you ask about my son Chris, our handicapped son, our oldest son, who lives in a group home. I mention Chris and his stories and sometimes post things on Facebook and such, and YouTube even. Some of the funny things Chris says, but many people write, how's Chris doing in this lockdown? He lives in a group home, and as such, there has been a ban on visitation for since the middle of March, second half of March. And people are asking about it, and I want to tell you, in the hopes that somebody can pass this on, maybe somebody knows somebody. My son has lost 52 pounds in 71 days. 52 pounds in 71 days. Let me tell you a little bit about the story. I'll try not to go too long. Chris was born with the umbilical cord around his neck in a slip knot, causing brain damage. So even though he's physically 40 years old, mentally he's about 4 years old. And sometimes he takes things in at a deeper level, higher level, and sometimes it's like talking to a 2 or 3 year old or 4 year old. And he's in a wheelchair. And he was at home for the first 24 years of his life. But when his little brothers graduated high school in succession and then off to college, we realized taking care of Chris was a full-time job. And we made the most difficult decision of our lives to place him in a group home. And that is a wonderful company that's been there for him these last 16 years, called Home of Hope. It's based in Veneta, Oklahoma. They have group homes, some 250 residents in homes all over Northeast Oklahoma, from Claremore to Veneta to Miami, down to, I think, Jay and Grove. Several communities all the way through. To date, they've had 0 incidents of COVID in their group homes. 0. They've done an exemplary, amazing job of keeping their residents and their staff free from COVID-19. However, the state of Oklahoma has painted all 8 divisions of long-term facilities with the same broad brush. It's been a one-size-fits-all approach. For instance, in the state of Oklahoma, nursing homes is just one of 8 categories of residential facilities. There are also what are called ICFs, which is where my son is, a group home for those who are, to say it nicely, not as smart as you and I. And there are also, there's Alzheimer's homes, there's continuous care homes, there's assisted living centers, there are veterans centers, there are, of course, nursing homes, etc. There's 8 total in the state of Oklahoma, but they're being painted with a one-size-fits-all brush, broad brush. It just says no visitation. Now, the ramifications upon visiting someone in a nursing home or a group home or an Alzheimer's home or a long-term care facility or an assisted living facility, the ramifications are this. That resident would be forced to live 14 days locked down in their bedroom, all meals in their bedroom, bathroom, everything in their bedroom for 14 days, quarantined, just maybe the possibility that they might have picked up the COVID virus. But here's the situation, folks. Why has my son lost 52 pounds in 71 days? We last saw him physically on March 21st. We've been keeping in touch through Zoom, web meetings, telephone calls, etc. And we could tell that he was going downhill. We kept telling them that he's getting thinner. We started out with 20-minute conversations, and now it's down to 2 and 3. He's not focused, etc. And finally, we got them to weigh him at the 71-day mark, and found out that he'd lost 52 pounds. Now, here's the thing: the staff comes and goes at will. And this is true not only of the group home, but it is true of nursing homes and assisted living and all those things, rehabs, everything. The staff come and go as they please. And so what happened was, got the ball rolling, is that one day on a Tuesday, they took the residents of my son's group home, loaded them in a bus, took them to a local park on Grand Lake, where we live, Grand Lake, Northeast Oklahoma, and took them for an outing, and then went back to the group home. And I said, great. I said, I want to do that. Let me go pick up my son. We'll go to the same park. I'll follow whatever guidelines you have in terms of time limits and stuff like that. And then I'll bring him back but he needs to see his dad. He needs to see his mom. Let us have some family time. They said, no, Mr. Finn, I'm sorry. If you did that, he would face 14 days locked down in his bedroom. I said, how can that be? You and I shop at the same Walmart. You and I get gas at the same gas station. We go to the same hardware store, the same restaurants. How is it that you can come and go as you please and you can take my son out in public? But if I were to do that, because of me, because I'm not on staff, you would lock him up in his room for 14 days. He's a mental 4-year-old. How can you lock up someone who's a mental 4-year-old for 14 days in their bedroom? That does not make any sense. It's illogical. Mathematically, I'm not exposing myself any more to the COVID-19 virus than the staff at Home of Hope there, because we shop at the same stores, we do the same things. So it's not like I'm going out and trying to get infected or anything. There's no mathematical probability that puts me at having a greater exposure to the thing. And so the law is not treating equally, and my son's constitutional rights, his visitation rights, everything are being violated, and as well as mine, not allowing me to see my son because of the ramifications. Now, I could see him if I pulled him out. I could see him, but I'm not going to do that to my son to return him to face what would be, in his mind, recrimination for having seen mom and dad locked in his bedroom for 14 days. The state of Oklahoma recognizes it has an issue because normally it has a 14 consecutive day limit to that which a parent can pull their child out for a long-term visitation. They figure a 2-week vacation, that's the maximum. Well, the state of Oklahoma has gotten rid of that requirement completely. So they recognize that parents are pulling their children out of group homes, their adult children out of group homes. Secondly, they used to have a 60-night per year visitation limit. In other words, basically 1 night a week, a parent could come and have their son or daughter for a home visit. And that's what we've done with Chris. I usually pick him up on Fridays. We spend the day running errands and everything. We come back home at 3 or 4 o'clock. He's got a good home cooked meal, spends the night Friday night, gets up, watches cartoons and his shows on Saturday. Then Saturday afternoon, I take him back to the group home. And we have always used those 60 nights. I mean, throw in a birthday and Christmas and Thanksgiving, and you've used up the 60 nights. We've always done that. Well, the state has expanded that to 70 nights. So they've expanded to 70 nights and done away with the 14 consecutive day limit. So the state of Oklahoma recognizes that law is not fair. It doesn't make sense. It's not logical. It's not mathematical. There's nothing to it. But I learned long ago that you don't present a problem to a CEO or a governor or somebody like that. I learned in the corporate world, you never present the problem without giving them a solution. So here's my solution to the governor, to the state of Oklahoma health officials. Allow the health professionals in those 8 divisions to make their own mind up, to make their own policies based on the residents that they are in charge of in terms of their visitation. Delegate out, Governor Stitt. Governor and healthcare officials delegate out to the professional healthcare facility people who in those 8 divisions, and allow them to develop their own policies of visitation. Don't do one size fits all like a nursing home, because there's a huge difference between an 85-year-old frail individual who can understand mentally what a lockdown is versus my mental 4-year-old son who only understands he can't see mom and dad. And so that is the update. How is our son? He's holding his own. He's supposed to be weighed tomorrow. What happened was he was weighed on May 21st, and between March 10th and May 21st, he'd lost 52 pounds. And then their scale, they tried the next week, a week ago, and their scale was not calibrated correctly, kept giving them, one weight said he'd gained 12 pounds in a week. The other one said he'd lost 10 more pounds in a week. And so they're having it recalibrated. Tomorrow is the 2-week mark. I trust they found the scale or gotten it fixed. And here's the thing. I said, why not go to the hospital? Go to the doctor's office. They've got roll-on, wheelchair scales. And they said, no, we can't do that, because if we did, he'd be locked down in his room for 14 days. Folks, that's just not fair. I'm trying to think anything else on my notes. I've just hit a brick wall with the governor's office having left a message, Senator Mullen having left a message, talked to an aide there at one point, state senator, Department of Health officials. It's like, end the illogical no visitation rule and allow, say, a nursing home director might want to keep that because of the fragility of their care, of those in their charge, but a group home, such as Home of Hope, where they have had zero people, zero residents exposed or sick with COVID, zero people, allow them to formulate their own privacy and visitation rules and everything else. So anyway, I can't think of anything else. The big thing is that the people on the shift come and go. They go in to take care of my son and the others in his group home, then they go home and they can shop at the same Walmarts, the same gas station, the same hardware stores, everything else that I do. But there are no ramifications on them coming in and out and going to work and exposing my son and the other residents to whatever bug is out there. But if I do it, I'm automatically assumed that I have done more exposure to more risk than they have. And that's absolutely ridiculous. So the solution, let the directors of Home of Hope and other long-term care, or the ICFs, excuse me, determine their own visitation problems, solution policies. Let the nursing home directors determine their visitation policies. Let the assisted living have the freedom to do that. The Alzheimer's, the veterans, the continuum care, all the 8 divisions in the state of Oklahoma, let each head of each organization decide on certain policies and procedures. Let my son go. Let him come home. If we find out that he's continued to lose weight and he's not leveled off, and if we continue to find that he emotionally is going downhill, then we have no choice than to pull him from there completely and completely rearrange our lives, certainly. And then, I mean, we cross that bridge when we get to it, but we are approaching that bridge. And if so, it would mean a massive rearrangement of our lives once again, which I gladly do. He's our son. But it shouldn't get to this. Common sense should prevail. Wisdom should prevail. And the governor, Stitt, and the healthcare officials should not be approaching long-term care facilities with the same broad brush. They should not approach it as a one-size-fits-all, because it doesn't. The residents of those facilities are vastly different in mental and physical abilities. So that's what's going on with Chris. If we have to bring him home, it will be in the next, well, certainly by the end of June. And I just cannot imagine. Yes, I've already contacted ACLU, two law firms, U.S. senator, state senator, trying to get to news agencies, anybody who has an interest in the disparity between the law and the draconian policy that would lock up a mental 4-year-old in their room for 14 days just because maybe they've been exposed. I just can't imagine. Let the creativity flow. Let the professionals do their job. That's what's happening. That's where we are. Hope to see our son Chris soon. And if we have to pull him, we have to pull him. And then we will cross that bridge later. But somebody somewhere has to stand up and say enough of this silliness. That if the staff can come and go at will as they please, then what's wrong with a parent doing the same thing, to visit their child in person and perhaps even bring him home for a week or so, fatten him up, get him back on a good mental and emotional healthy ground again before returning him to the group home without the fear of a 14-day lockdown under quarantine, even though he'd be healthy, quarantine in his bedroom. So anyway, that's what's happening with Chris. I appreciate your prayers, appreciate you remembering him, and just give us wisdom as well. All right, bye-bye.